This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio is brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. I love that. I love that. Yes. How can you not get excited when you hear that? It doesn't matter what you connect it to. You know, it could be setting a hook on a fish, could be rolling a set of dice on a crap table. But when it happens, when that moment happens, it's yes, baby. Welcome to the program. Sans, my usual co-pilot. He is off today. He will be back on the next show. Dean Taylor, though, will be
come on now,
doing his best job at trying to imitate Mr. Baldwin.
I'll do my best.
Bova, Nick, usual cast. A wonderful show today. I met our first guest, which will be coming on here in a few moments. I met him a few weeks ago at a very impromptu meeting, we'll call it. I was at a fish and game club, Franklin Fishing and Outdoors Club, and he was sitting next to me at lunch, and so we just hit it off. And a fascinating gentleman. You'll love him to death. His name is Rob Baldwin. He is the Chief Administrative Officer for the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority.
Come on now.
And fascinating guy, but more importantly, he's an avid one of us, avid angler. So great perspective on fishing. A wonderful program beyond that, because we have some great news stories. Before we get to any of those, let's talk about fishingcanada.com, shall we? Because there's something going on there, and apparently this is what's going on.
Yeah, our store manager came up with a new program.
Okay, what's the program?
The bonus code that you normally hear that gets you the 10 entries for the contest will now apply to the store to get you a discount. So if you type in...
As well?
As well. So you're going to get 10 free entries to the contest, whatever that is, a motor, a live scope, whatever we have.
Right.
If you go to the store and you're purchasing a new hoodie or a t-shirt or a hat, you use the promo code that you heard in the episode, and that week it'll count towards a discount, an undisclosed discount.
And just that week, though?
Just that week,
because
it changes.
Then next week there's another code that will give you an undisclosed discount.
Yep.
Okay. And do you want me to read that now?
I think so. I think this would be the best time.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would. Yeah, because we'll kind of connect it to what's going on.
Yeah.
So we interrupt this program to bring you the much anticipated special bonus code.
Come on now.
To the Fishing Canada giveaways, which now also will give you a discount on the shop.
Come on now.
This week's code is Simcoe, SIMCOE, and it'll become clearer to you later on in the show why we have Simcoe as the bonus code. That's all capital letters too, isn't it,
That's
Dean?
right, yeah. It has to be all capitals.
Is that like if they don't put capitals on it, it just won't go through?
No, you'll get an error code.
Okay.
And then you'll email us and tell us it doesn't work, and we'll have to explain that.
You do that quite often?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah, I thought so. Capital letters, Simcoe, all uppercase. SIMCOE is the bonus code for the giveaway, plus the bonus code if you want to get some merch at a discount.
Come on now.
Type that into the area that says bonus code. You'll get 10 free entries into the contest, whichever contest it is. And off you go. Simcoe. You'll find out.
Now.
You'll find out why later. And some new goodies up there at the shop too, by the way. I like this.
Yeah, it's nice,
This look. I like
you
that.
did a good job.
Makes it look urgent.
Yeah.
You know? Listener feedback. Listener feedback this week is from Phil Hollingdale. I'm assuming that's his whole name. Phil Hollingdale, 7593 via YouTube. So does this qualify for anything?
No, he commented and he just wanted us to read this.
All right. In response to episode 171 with Sean Treadell, that's the guy who is building a homestead, right?
Yep.
Great guy, by the way. I would love that episode. He says, interesting episode, guys. Enjoyed your conversation with Sean. who is living our boyhood dreams. Is he ever? Especially those of us who read the coming of age survival, The Hatchet. He actually followed through on these urges at the rest of us shushed and tucked away. And now we live vicariously through his videos every Saturday. Funny how he watched you, because he says on that podcast that he grew up watching Fish and Canada show. But funny how he watched you in his youth, and now you're watching him. Circle of Life stuff. Very, very true. Great comment. Is there anything for that? Is there just
no? We don't give. We just we like people who do that.
How about just an attaboy?
Yeah, I like that.
Attaboy.
I need a button for that.
Yeah. You got a button for an attaboy?
I don't have.
Wow.
You can have
No, that's not. Give him an attaboy.
Come on now.
No, give him something nice.
Do it live!
Yeah, well, it's getting closer.
That's all I have. Oh,
We
wait.
need an attaboy.
Give me a hell yeah!
There you go. That's close to an attaboy.
Yeah, there we go.
Phil Hollingdale, 7593 via YouTube. Thank you very much. Keep them coming. We appreciate it. But that is a great episode. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Episode 171 of this very podcast. And the guest name is Sean Trudell. Conservation Corner brought to you by the good folks at Invasive Species Centre. They want you to know that your favorite species of sportfish could be in peril due to the grass carp possible invasion. One of 4 species of the Asian carp. If it gets in, we're in big trouble. What we need to do, listen, nobody spends as much water or time on the water as anglers. So think of this. If we could employ all the anglers north of the 49th parallel that are going to be involved with the Great Lakes watershed waters in some way or form this summer, if we could employ all of them to be our watchdogs on any subject at all, in this case, it's checking out for grass carp, boy, we'd have an army out there. Well, you know what? That's exactly what we've got. We have potentially an army of people that can equip themselves with information regarding the grass carp, not only identification, but habitat and the way it acts and all kinds of stuff that's available to you on the asiancarp.ca website. If you got that information and you go out and do your thing this summer and just keep that information on your phone and in the back of your head, if you see one of those critters, boom, push the button, make the call, help us all stay on top of this situation. Asiancarp.ca is where you need to be, and the grass carp identification chart is the one that you need to download.
Come on now.
Thar. In the news, boy, there's some shocking news. Where do you get this stuff? It's like you almost like you make it up. You say, what can I put on this desk that's doomy and gloomy on this
I
one?
actually had to check the date because I feel like we've covered stuff like this before.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do
I don't know if
too.
it happens. Well, it kind of says in this story that it does happen quite often. It's not that uncommon, but this, like, it seemed identical to what we've covered in the past.
By the way, this news story is brought to you by the good folks at J&B Cycle and Marine, your outdoor superstore when it comes to boat packages especially. Man, oh man, oh man, oh. They are the largest. Prior to them jumping on board with us, I had no idea. They are the largest Princecraft Mercury dealer in the province of Ontario. That's massive, man.
Come on now.
Give them something.
Oh my.
Sure. There you go. I bought you a new box of sound effects, okay?
I wasn't prepared
because
for
you
this,
said,
though.
boss, I would like to be a little more creative and I want a little more space. I need some more buttons. So I went to the Countess on your behalf and I made your case and I pleaded with her that we needed to spend the money because Dean needs some more.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
It's not a bunch of bullshit at all. And there you go. And you don't use the damn thing.
Have a fine day and get rid of that bullshit. Bye.
Anyways, JMB Cycle and Marine, that's what we were telling you. They are the sponsors of the news segment on this very program. And as such, I think you should I think you should go to their website just to check them out. Now, the website is jbcycle.com, not JNB. JNB is their actual name, but they dropped the and in their URL. So it's just jbcycle.com. Check it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. They got some things on there that will keep you on their site for a few. I don't want to give it away. They'll keep you on their site for a period of time. Some entertainment for you. All right. Now, this story, it was first observed in late August that there was a kill-off.
Late April.
April. I don't know. Where did I get August from?
Starts with an A. An A, yeah.
A. Okay, no, see, I try and match that. So April in this case, not August. I'm sure something happened in August that year too.
It seems like they're dying all the time.
Maybe they were dying in August as well, and this is just the first time. But anyways, first observed late April and has continued into May of this year. So just the last couple of months. Large numbers of dead fish have been discovered along the shores of Lake Huron, particularly near the mouth of Asable River.
Yeah.
We'll call it Asable River in southeastern Ontario. The species affected, the die-off primarily involves species such as sucker, catfish, and freshwater drum. This is not the first time, Dean.
No.
This is not the first time that I have uttered those words. No. I've just had a deja vu moment. And it always seems coarse fish.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's carp, common carp.
Yep.
Sometimes it's sucker. But it always seems like coarse fish.
Yeah, it
freshwater drum. I wonder what that's all about. Anyways, they say that it's a suspected viral hemorrhagic septicemia.
Yeah.
VHS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you laughing at me?
That was just a good pronunciation. I think people will like that.
Yeah? How would you say it?
Not much better.
Okay.
Viral hemorrhagic septicemia, maybe.
Yeah, well, that was a whole lot different than what I just said. You can play that back, too, on one of your buttons I bought you. A highly contagious fish virus affecting 50 species. Causes internal bleeding, especially in organs and muscle tissue. Like weird. And, we're always surprised at those, but why would we think that fish are immune to viruses? We get it all the time, right? We have all kinds of viruses. Why would we think that fish are immune to them? This is clearly a case where viruses set in on a particular colony of fish and just total devastation, obviously, right?
Yeah, and like they spawn in big packs. I think it just spreads through the whole thing so quick.
Yeah, they're so close. I mean, we've seen schooling fish, how tight they get, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyways, a fascinating story, Dean. Did you author this? Or
I didn't author it. It is on the website. Our editors put it together, our big team of editors. But the one thing that I have highlighted here is that it can't be transferred to humans. So or mammals. So if your dog is near the fish, or if you decide to eat the fish you find on shore for some reason, you'll be fine. You'll be fine from this disease. You might not be fine for anything else.
Eating a dead carcass that's sitting on the beach, for sure you won't be fine from that.
But you won't get this disease.
How do they know this?
I'm assuming someone had to eat one and figure it out. It's got to be.
I don't know whether I'd want to take that chance or not.
I wouldn't volunteer.
No. Anyways, interesting story. It's all sitting at fishingcanada.com. Your gateway, the portal to your next fishing adventure awaits you at fishingcanada.com. Fan question of the week brought to you by the good folks at fishfinder.com. Fishfinder.com.
Come on now.
If you are installing any kind of electronics on your boat right now, if you're in the garage listening to this because you're outfitting your new boat with, I don't know, some kind of sonar device, I guarantee you that if you go to fishfinder.com right now, just stop what you're doing.
Fishfindermounts.com.
That's what I said.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to keep correcting me. Just because it worked once doesn't mean it's going to work every day. All right. Fishfindermounts.com. I guarantee you. Where was I going with this, Dean?
You're going to be in your garage working on your boat, and you're trying
and you might not think you're going to have a problem completing the assembly of whatever it is you're mounting. But I guarantee you, if you go to fishfindermounts.com website right now, you're going to see something that just jumps off the screen at you and says, oh my God, if I have that, think how much easier it's going to be for me to do that. And that, my friends, is why you need to go to fishfindermounts.com.
Come on now.
Who brings you this segment, by the way? All right. The segment is Fan Question of the Week, and it's Travis McNaughton via email. Now, does he get anything for this?
Unfortunately not, unless, I mean...
So are we giving anything away anymore, or is that
this
just
episode,
completely...
we're saving a lot of money. But Travis, he emailed us this question. We have a large bank of people who still email in questions.
Oh.
We do have parameters set by the powers above that you have to leave a comment on YouTube in order to qualify for the money.
Okay.
And people are still emailing in quite often. So
Okay.
these people just need to go, just some advice. You can make a YouTube account for free and comment on our videos, and then you might get some money.
Okay. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Travis says, hey, Ange and Pete, love the show. With the bass spawn starting up down here in Southern Ontario, I had a question for you guys. Do you think that M&R should be setting up more fish sanctuaries on our lakes to stop people from accidentally, I'm sure that's how he means it, targeting bass on beds? Curious to hear your take. Well, you're not going to hear Mr. Bowman's take on this, which I happen to know what it is, but you will hear mine. And it would get a little bit greasy, though, right? A little bit difficult. But I do agree. I do agree. See, here's the problem with spawn, especially spawning bass, is that you can't just say, oh, okay, like they do now. You can't just say, okay, the spawn will take place from, March 1st to May 26th. Well, you can't do that because there's so many variables that will change that date one way or the other. Most of them totally out of our control. No, all of them totally out of our control. That it's difficult for the M&R or any other governing body to, they try and keep fish safe during the spawn because it's the right thing to do. But as long as they keep putting dates on a calendar as the opening and closing of certain seasons based on spawn, it's always going to be subject to error because they'll change. Things will change. So to answer your question on this, can they pick, as opposed to a date, can they just say that this area is off limits for fishing, period, until August? Hey, see, there's where the August came in, Dean.
Yeah, there it was.
Yeah, I knew I was going to use that word, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then the problem with that is that we'd have all these fish sanctuaries and these off-limits places in the waterways. And people are going to say, well, I didn't know that.
And the people to enforce them.
And how are you going to enforce it? So, there is no right or wrong. You know what the only right way is? That every single one of us should be our own enforcement agency for ourselves. Think about it. If we enforced the rules and regulations on ourselves, we wouldn't need anybody to enforce them on anybody else because we'd all be doing it ourselves. I think it's a personal issue, fishing for spawning or bedding fish, accidentally fishing for bedding fish. I think it's a personal choice. I think it's a bad choice if we think that we can get away with it, even if it's not against the law. But regardless, we should be policing ourselves. I don't think you can put anything in place to stop people from doing it, is my opinion. I just don't. Now, you may argue that in some parts of the world, south of us, for example, Florida, maybe, it's perfectly fine. They fish them on the beds every day of the week. In most cases, in all cases, it's because they have the optimum climate for largemouth bass. They don't have the dreaded winter period that we do. And bass in Florida will spawn 4, 5, 6 times throughout the course of the year depending on which one suits them best. We don't have that. Our bass don't have that option here. It's a very tight little window. It's short, and it's subject to change without further notice. So it's tough for them. I've always believed that that's that one time a year where we need to leave the fish alone. And I'm using bass as an example. We could probably bring trout into this. We could bring just about any other species. So one time a year where maybe we give them a break. We cut them a break. We do it ourselves without any enforcement from M&R. So there's what I think. Mr. Bowman, we'll have to ask him when he gets back, see what I know his opinion already. He agrees with me on that one, by the way. There you go. Travis McNaughton via email. Hopefully we answered your question well. Alrighty, now to the main guest of the show. This segment brought to you by Sail, the home of all good things outdoors, especially fishing and hunting and camping and all that good stuff. Not only rods and reels and tackle, but footwear, clothing, rainwear. Like today, rainwear would be a good idea to have, but so much more. Anything you need when you're going to the outdoors, it's available at Sail. If you don't have one near you, go to sail.ca. That's sail.ca. And they have all their goodies there. And I understand that they have constant discounts available on their website as well, up to 60% off on some items. So you definitely want to go to see Sail. As I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to do something that I don't normally do. I went to an event at the Franklin Fishing and Outdoors Club. And boy, that was an eye-opener in itself. But making it even a more special day, I had an opportunity to sit at lunch that day with our next guest. His name is Rob Baldwin. He's the Chief Administrative Officer for the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, which I'm going to bet that there are probably 99 out of 100 out there that are saying, what's that? Because I was one of them. It's been around for 30 years. It's a conservation authority that's made up mostly of avid anglers, but scientists, et cetera. And their sole job is to keep that Lake Simcoe watershed pure and clean for all of us to enjoy for years to come. So I thought, what a great guy to talk to. He had some fascinating things. I hope I can get him to open up a little bit on the show. His name is Rob Baldwin. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thanks, Ange. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, that was a great event. We were both obviously involved with. Now, that was a Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority event, wasn't it, that we were at?
Yeah, that was a fundraising event for we have a foundation that supports our organization. So that's one of the events we do where we have a couple fishing days a year. Is basically to offer something other than a golf tournament. The golf tournament's pretty much the norm out there for raising money. So having a fishing event for those that like to fish like I do and yourself and others, it's just a different way to reach out to the community, and they get to come out, have a great day fishing and talk shop as well as have some fun.
Well, it was my first venture to the Franklin Fishing Club. I had them on our radio program for years on a regular basis, but I never made the effort to go out and see them. And it was my first venture out there. And you mentioned golf. When I got back here to the studio, when I came back from that event, that's all I could talk about was, wow, this is to fishing what golfing is to golfers. Because that's what I felt like. I felt like we were on a well-manicured, well-maintained, pristine, beautiful environment, but it felt like a golf course, and I thought it was fantastic. What a great concept.
Yeah, it's a gem. It's a great place that very few know about. 10 minutes from Newmarket in the 404, 25 minutes maybe from Oshawa, Whitby, right up Highway 48. And it's just tucked in there outside of Mount Albert. It's it's like you said, a fishing club equivalent of golf club. It's a clubhouse, great food, fishing's phenomenal, great place.
It's fantastic. Anyways, enough about them. By the way, that fishing there is spectacular too. We haven't even talked about
not too shabby, eh?
Now, is that in your jurisdiction? Shall we say? Is it makes up part of your area that you look after?
Yeah, it's in our jurisdiction. It's a reservoir on one of the tributaries that flows into Lake Simcoe.
Okay, so let's establish that right off the bat. Tell me about the area that when we say the Lake Simcoe Conservation area, what area are we talking about?
Okay, so the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority is there's 36 conservation authorities in Ontario. We're one of them. Most of them are in Southern Ontario. Like basically, conservation authorities represent basically all of Southern Ontario, and there's a few in the North Bay, Sudbury, Thunder Bay.
Are these NGOs? Are these
No. We're created by provincial legislation under the Conservation Authorities Act, and we're moving into our 75th year next year.
Whoa.
Conservation authorities were actually created originally to deal with the droughts in the Ganaraska Forest area. Remember, when all the trees were gone, and that was the original response. And then Hurricane Hazel came along and gave us really what is our core focus now is around hazard management, making sure keeping people out of the floodplain, protecting people in their homes and infrastructure. So that's where we've grown. And so our area in Lake Simcoe is anything that drains into the Lake Simcoe, into the lake, the watershed, from the Oak Ridges Moraine in the south, Barrie, is our purview. So we have sort of, I guess, 4 main areas of focus: hazard management, so protecting people around the flooding side of the world; outdoor education. We have an outdoor ed center in Bradford where we do curriculum-based outdoor education, get kids out of the classroom into the forest. Great program. We have a science and monitoring program. We're very invested with the lake. That's, of course, at the heart of us, as well as we have other groups that do environmental restoration, wetland creation, river restoration. So those are the 4 buckets, as well as owning large parcels of land that are all free for public access. So we've got quite a program for an area of 2,500 square kilometers.
Now, you made it very clear to me over lunch, because of course my interest goes right to fish, right? As soon as I talk to anybody that's in that business, I get right to the point. And you made it very clear that you spend most of your time, or all of your time, is dedicated to everything except game fish.
Yeah.
Right? So explain that.
So fish management is totally the purview of Ministry of Natural Resources. So we're not involved in any of the fisheries management. We just help support them with the science, doing aquatic mapping, macrophyte plant mapping, invasive species work, fisheries data collection in the tributaries, all that work. So we provide a lot of the information used by the managers, but we are not involved in that side of the business, and we leave that totally to them. They are the longtime experts, but we have a role to play to help ensure that they have the best information we can provide through our staff.
Yeah, so I'll just throw this out as an example. And let's take Lake Simcoe, because I know you and I talked about this. When the Gobies started invading Lake Simcoe, you guys were on it to sort of monitor it and see where it was going to go and what results were going to look like. And I found it fascinating because you made a comment. I don't know whether you're free to discuss this on an open mic, but I found it fascinating that you said to me that it's now become a very significant part of the forage base of Lake Simcoe. And in fact, we've been saying for years how the Lake Simcoe smallmouth bass have just been growing almost, I won't say exponentially because that would be false, but unnaturally. And having that discussion with you over lunch kind of turned a lot of little lights on in my head. I mean, obviously the Goby has everything to do with what's going on there, as it does in the St. Lawrence River, by the way.
Yeah.
And we'll use smallmouth bass in both those cases. Definitely Gobies have attributed to the amazing growth and health, for that matter, of the smallmouth bass in most areas that Gobies are prevalent in now. And you pointed that out to me, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Lake Simcoe's got a long history of invasive species because it's been, in and around the GTA, and so going back from carp to Eurasian milfoil, and now zebra mussels, quagga mussels, but now Goby is one of the big ones. And the Goby population in all the Great Lakes, Lake Simcoe is no different. Lake Simcoe is like just a mini version of a Great Lake. It's a big lake right in the heart of the Great Lakes, and it acts like one, just on a smaller scale. So when the Gobies came in, the habitats great. Like there's a lot of rocky sand bottom across the entire lake. They reproduce like crazy. They produce just unbelievable amount of offspring. So they have a huge population, expands very quickly. And really, the way I think we were chatting about is I like to make it it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet down there.
Yeah.
You know, like these gobies are very prevalent. They're across the bottom. They're easy prey especially for a smallmouth who's very predatory and very strong at finding its food source. And they're everywhere. And also the one thing too is for the size of a goby, like they're not big, like 2-inch, 3-inch goby. They're also very high in protein compared to say other forage fish. So when they're eating it, they're getting like a meal with a protein shake on the side, so to speak. Just try to keep it simple. Like these, so when they're out there, they can forage on these things like crazy. And the weights in the Simcoe bass were strong before the goby.
Oh, I know.
This is just brought it to the next level. Like we've seen like these footballs that are out there.
It's funny you said that to me, and I kind of in my own head, I said, I got to bring that up. We ever get a chance to talk about it more. You said that they were higher in protein than most, if not all, of the forage that's in Lake Simcoe now. And I'm kind of curious as to how can we make that claim? And the reason I say that, simple mind here, if they both live in the same environment, they're both living off the same food source. I mean, goby and whoever we want to compare it to. What's the other main forage in Simcoe?
Right now, probably emerald shiners, and perch. I mean, there's perch prevalent everywhere.
So if they all live in the same environment, same food base, same water quality, how can one be higher in protein than another?
They're all high in protein. I think the one thing with the goby is it's the available effort to get it and the protein that's available to fish. There's been some literature done around like what's the exact protein to weight, right? And on a goby versus other fish, and it's higher. I think one of the big ones is also they don't have to chase them, so they're also expending less energy. So it's a combination of high protein forage fish that is available to them, less forage effort. Right. So you're kind of combining those two things come together. And it's also the third thing is just prevalence. They're everywhere. Like, they're very common, and especially in the areas that the smallmouth like, rocky, sandy areas. Yeah. That's where the goby like to be. So it's really that kind of perfect scenario. And you see it anywhere in the Great Lakes. There's rock, right? Gravel, Lake Erie, St. Lawrence. They're, where the gobies are, the smallies are big.
Is there anything negative about, and I don't want to make this show about the goby, but I'm fascinated by them. Is there anything negative about them?
I think the area that is still the fear is twofold around their ability, because they are like a bottom forager, is their ability to predate eggs during spawning, either perch spawning or like lake trout or whitefish spawning, is that they love to eat eggs and predate. So when the goby got in Lake Simcoe, I think there was an original fear that the perch are going to take a beating, right? Right. This is going to really knock down those young perch, or ability to recruit into the population. And it hasn't really seemed to appear. The perch fishing has seemed to be really strong in the last couple of years. And I think that's a mix of a bunch of things, but I think that fear has been somewhat negated. And I think that's the only area I think people are still watching to see, is there a longer term potential impact that they impact on that ability for egg survival to they just predate on the spawning nests. But other than that, they haven't really created much of an impact on other elements of the food chain. I haven't seen it yet. So I think right now, I always because invasive species, you're in the early days. You have like 30, 40 years down the line and say, hey, did that really make an impact on the big picture? And we're not there yet. But I think right now it hasn't made as much of an impact as we thought. And it's smallmouth bass love them. The whitefish in Lake Simcoe have completely adapted to them. Like, they are now predating pretty heavily on goby. I mean, you think back, I'm a big fisherman too. And so 20 years ago in Simcoe was the old Williams whitefish or jig and wrap, the classics. Now, if you're not using like one of those goby style lead head jigs with the crappy trailer, you're not catching them. They're not going to hit those minnow baits anymore.
No,
it's all goby.
They don't even see. They're oblivious to them, right? They focus in on anything that has the profile and color and probably movement of a goby. And if you're not playing that game, you're not catching smallmouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I spoke, Rob, about a year, maybe 2 years ago. I had an opportunity to, over lunch again, to speak to a scientist, American scientist south of the border, who has been working on the St. Lawrence waterway for most of his life. and the whole goby discussion came up. And he believes, now he says he doesn't have any practical, there's no paperwork. In other words, he put out a disclaimer, there's no paperwork involved in this. But he believes that the smallmouth bass on the St. Lawrence River have adapted to the change brought on by the goby. The change is that the food abundance, less energy spent to get fueled up, etc. And they've actually started developing more eggs than they had before. Oh. So his theory is because genetically the fish now knows that the dining table used to be this big. Well, now it's this big. They're developing more eggs because the food base is there. That's his say, and he's working on it. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. I should call him and see how he's making out on that.
That makes sense. When you have a good environment and you're healthy, right, you're going to be able to do more. When you're in a stressed environment, your body will, to fish, right, or humans, right, we always respond in an adverse way. So that principle makes sense.
Think about that.
Principle makes sense.
If money was not the object and home was not the problem, most marriages would end up with 10 kids, 12 kids, right? That kind of thing. But because we've got all of the logistics don't kind of work that way, we keep them small. Well, this is a great example how nature might be dealing with that right there in the St. Lawrence, and Lake Simcoe, maybe. Who knows?
They certainly have changed the game for sure. And negatively, it's really hard to find a negative. I mean, whenever you have invasives, you're always worried long term. What's the negative, right? I mean, it's just short term is you see the impact fees right away, good or bad. So long term, you always have to say, okay, like let's look at this 50, 60 years. I would say, was there a real impact? And I think that's when you'll really know. And I don't foresee one with goby, just based on how they are reacting to the system. So I think they're there, and they're not going away. They're here for the long run. They're here to stay. I think that's the one, I guess, positive you can take out of the smallmouth fishing, and will be fantastic in the Great Lakes area with this adverse, fish coming in. But hey, you got to deal with what you've got.
So a couple of things come to mind as an angler now. Now you tell me this. Are there a variety of types of gobies, or are we dealing with just one genetic?
Just the principal one. Yeah.
That's it.
There might be some others over in Eastern Europe that we don't have, and hopefully we don't get any more. We'll stick with the one, but no, it's just one.
But here, so all we as anglers need to do is focus in on that one creature, and we need to figure out how we can imitate that fish when we're out smallmouth bass fishing. Now, I'm talking in terms of color, size, movement, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see in the proliferation of all these goby style baits, like really advanced plastics and styles. I mean, the old tube jig was still, it was as great a goby bait as you could ever have, but you've got some more fancy versions, but nothing beats a smoky green gray tube is still going to do the job just as well.
And the action probably it would be as important as the profile, the color, because these gobies have a very distinctive way of moving, right? They don't just hover around. They don't just move, horizontally like regular fish, right? They kind of hop.
Yeah, they're tight to the bottom, right against the substrate, and they have really, for the size of the fish, they have the big pectoral fins out to the side, and they just kind of dart, like just little, 2 inches, 3 inches, just moving around, and so like just dragging through the gravel or rock and a little hop, just that's bait. It's pretty easy to do, right? It's pretty action, but
talk about the perfect way to fish, right, for jig fishermen.
Oh yeah,
I mean it's ideal. Just drift and just do little hops, right? That's fantastic.
Calm day, you can cast and drag, and if it's windy, just drag. You don't have to do a lot of work.
No, it's fantastic. All right, we got. I'm sorry, and I apologize for steering you down that road. There's so much more that we need to talk about. So, give us a sense of over the course of a year, what are the objectives of the Conservation Authority?
There's a variety. So, I mean, one of our largest teams is we're heavily involved in in development and infrastructure. So we act in essence as a bit of an environmental arm for our municipal partners on helping approve and make sure that some of the development, whether it's housing, pipes, infrastructure, roads, whatever it might be, is done in an environmental way. So focus on stormwater management, trying to make sure the water getting to the lake is as clean as possible, as well as reduce the flood risks. How do we protect some of the forests and the streams and all that involvement, get groundwater back in the ground. So we have a huge group that works on that with all our partners across the industry, and we have a good partnership with the development industry to make that happen, and as well as our municipalities. Our science group works year round. Our science and monitoring, water quality monitoring never stops on Lake Simcoe. It's a unique lake that has provincial interest. So we do a lot of the tributary and open water monitoring for the province as well as for our partners, collecting a focus on nutrients because Lake Simcoe has always had a bit of a phosphorus problem. So we spend most of our time working on the phosphorus side of the business. Our outdoor ed's busy year round with school groups, and in the summer with camp groups and summer camps. Our restoration program is working year round. We do wetland creation, wetland enhancement, river restoration. We work with our farmers on best practices on how to make their farms healthier and keep their crops and their livestock healthy. So it's a wide ranging group. We have about 115 employees, permanent employees, and for across all those sectors. So for the size of our organization, we have a busy portfolio, and our job really at the end of the day is to keep Lake Simcoe healthy and strong and protect it for whether you're an angler, a birder, a walker, or if you just want to get out on the lake and kayak. That's our job, is to make sure that this gem on the doorstep of the GTA is maintained.
Yeah, and you're not far from it. And that's the biggest, that's got to be the most difficult part of your job, is that you're sitting right on the edge of one of the largest urban population bases in North America. And it's got to be hard for you to, especially with such a wonderful watershed, that whole Lake Simcoe area is just one incredible piece of nature after another. And it's got to be difficult to protect it. It's got to be difficult to, and I'm sure you're involved with municipalities in that whole area when they're proposing new development in the areas. I would imagine you guys are on that in that meeting. And I guess depending on which side of that challenge you sit on, you could be looked upon as the purveyor of bad news, or you could be looked upon as our savior and protector.
Yeah,
so you're kind of in the middle, aren't you?
We sit in that nexus that no one likes. Basically, if everyone's sort of unhappy or happy with us, we're doing it right. It's tough when there's groups that feel like we're never doing enough. There are groups that we're way too stringent and too tough, and we're holding back growth or development, or not doing enough to protect that little forest or whatever it might be. It's a tough place to be, and we do it with a whole focus on how do we basically build the best communities around the environment and help that create health. Like, it's like basically we build a good community like Newmarket or Barrie or Uxbridge and make those communities vibrant, access to green space, clean water, access to the lake, and they can go fishing or boating. It's tough. I mean, some of the decisions are challenging, but we go at it very much from a partnership. We have an approach here. My staff get tired of hearing it. I use a phrase all the time: you can fight for minimums or partner for maximums. Pretty simple thing, right? Right. And if you work together, you can achieve a lot. And I find when you fight, you're just settling on the lowest common denominator, and that doesn't work for anybody. No one's really coming out of that as a winner. So we really try hard. And in Ontario, I think we hear about it all the time. We have a housing shortage. It's an important issue in the GTA, especially here in Simcoe, right on the doorstep. We have to be part of working on that solution to help Ontarians have houses and meet that demand, but at the same time protect the environment and protect Lake Simcoe. So we sit right in the nexus of all those people, and it's tough.
I actually had a question for that, if I can. I've always found, because I fished Lake Simcoe my whole life too, but I found over the last 5 years or so, kind of since COVID, it's become like somewhat hostile to access for like outsiders who don't live there. Is that an intentional thing? And I'm more talking about like boat launches and parking, and it's some of the highest prices I've ever seen for launching and for parking.
Ridiculous.
Like, is that an intentional thing, like an environmental concern, just because it is so close to Toronto, or is there other factors that are kind of keeping people out?
No, it's not environmental really. It's a social challenge. COVID definitely changed the game for everywhere within, say, an hour and a half, 2 hours of the GTA on getting access to green space, getting access to the lakes, and COVID also created a bit of that fear. The local communities don't want people from outside their communities, and that changed. And I mean, the one thing you have to look at, Lake Simcoe's got 122 kilometers of shoreline, and 96% of that is privately owned, because it was built and developed in the late 1800s. So it didn't have these large swaths of public land put aside like in other areas. I mean, there's some provincial parks, there's municipal parks, and boat launches, but they're limited, and that has created this challenge of increasing demand when you're only an hour and a half to get to the lake, or half an hour from Oshawa, Whitby, or whatever. Demand's high, and even some of those boat launches where the prices are high, there's just limited access even to park them. So you only have so many spots, and it's a continual challenge, and it's one that the municipalities are facing. It is a bit of that. Unfortunate at times, you've got a bit of the local. We want to protect it from our local perspective versus people coming from afar, but how do you manage that? And it's not easy. And unfortunately, there has been some instances where there's been some conflict, which is unfortunate, because it's a beautiful resource that we all should share. It's just, how do we do it well?
One way or the other, you're going to be the bad guy on every issue. That one, at least I don't get to deal with, because that's mostly a municipal issue, I'll be honest. So we don't have any direct lakefront, the conservation authority. The lands we own are more inland, so I don't have a boat launch to worry about myself. So, okay. But we see it on our own lands, the conflicts in the use of our own lands in Bradford, others, high demand, high use, and challenges with their social issues, and it's tough at times. Would you portray your job, and your job being the conservation authority's job, to be proactive or reactive? What would you think? Where do you fit in there?
We try to be as proactive as possible. That is, we try to look at everything through how do we help on the front end of anything. Like, it's a lot easier. I mean, we do have to react. Part of our job is we issue permits for work around water. Sometimes people don't like to get permits, so we do have an enforcement element that we have to do, and that's to make sure that we hold the playing field level, and also make sure that someone's doing work on the shoreline of Lake Simcoe, their work is not impacting their neighbor on either side. Because you start messing with the shoreline, it doesn't take much to that shoreline erosion, as an example, to spread beyond your own property. So we need to make sure that's done. But on the development side, on science, everything, we're always trying to be proactive and stay on top, because the more you can know on the front end, the better. And also, it's always better to protect and restore. Right? For sure. Or we can do on that front. That is our approach, but we have to react sometimes. And then when new invasive species come in, you have to react. Like you have proactive programs across Ontario, but they can still get in the lake. But how do you react once they get there? How do you monitor? How do you understand them? And that's where that kind of reaction we're involved in.
Yeah, and the other problem I see that you have is that it sits, and I say it meaning Lake Simcoe and the watershed, sits on prime agricultural land. I mean, the Holland River is one I'd like to talk about, because growing up as a bass angler, the Holland River 50 years ago was a target for largemouth bass fishermen.
Oh yeah.
And then it just got worse and worse and worse, and I don't even know, are there largemouth bass in that river now?
Oh yeah, they're there. I think they've come back a bit. Maybe are they back to the day they were? Back. I remember when a couple classics were won out of the river back in the days. Yeah. Would surprise a lot of people. And They're back. They're back. I think they're not back probably to that level. And the Holland River, you've got on one side of it, you've got Newmarket, Aurora, so you got some big urban centers that drain into the East Holland. On the West Holland, you have the Holland Marsh and some high intensity agriculture. So it's taken a bit of a rough time, but that has really changed. The work we've done in the urban areas around stormwater management has improved water quality dramatically. The farmers in the Holland Marsh and working with the Drainage Commission for the Holland Marsh have really changed their practices, and there's a new a plant that's been proposed by the province to help treat the runoff, the agricultural pump-off water, to reduce nutrients. So that will change the Holland River even more. And you'll see it beginning to increase its bounce back over the next, say, 10 to 15 years. And that's the challenge. The other thing, just like housing, like the Holland Marsh, it's the vegetable basket in Ontario. Like that's where
I know
pretty much the bulk of your carrots, onions, celery come from, and it's in a critical agricultural area for people in this province. So you've got to balance off their needs as farmers producing food. So this is where all these challenges combine. Like
explain maybe to people who might not see that picture from the 3,000 foot level. Mm-hmm. How does a farmer have any impact on the water quality in Lake Simcoe?
Well, it depends on what you're farming. I mean, everywhere from if you're in the marsh or you're doing dairy is for like cattle and dairy. How do you manage your manure? Trying to keep it away from the water courses and running in, keeping that nutrients from getting in as well as bacteria. In the Holland Marsh and other areas is nailing down your what do you need for fertilizer? Like fertilizer is expensive, so they don't want to put on any more than they need. So they do soil testing and they do stuff like changing the direction of their croppings. Instead of having the furrows go downhill and everything erodes and drains quickly down to the creek, they go across the hill and try and slow down that water. So it's just they do. And then in the Holland Marsh, they have to wash all the vegetables. In the past, they would just wash it into the river. Now they use a controlled plan where they wash it, recycle the water, clean the dirt out, and it prevents it from getting in the river. So there's 40 years of agricultural stewardship that we've been involved in this watershed to help all our farmers, and it's about helping them, keeping their crops safer and better, keeping their livestock. But at the same time, the benefit is an improved lake and improved creeks, and it's a winning scenario for both. And we've had great relationships with all the farmers in our watershed.
You told me that Lake Simcoe water clarity is, and it's always been, I would say certainly last decade and a bit.
Oh, yeah.
It's been the cleanest body of water I've ever fished. But you're saying it's getting even cleaner, even clearer?
It's beyond clear. I mean, so the real focus on Lake Simcoe and sort of the health of Lake Simcoe really started in the 70s. Like that was when water quality was at it's right around its poorest, right? Coming out of the post-World War II revolution and everything, like industrial and roads and highways being built. That was the toughest time, and there wasn't great sewage treatment, technology at the time, and water quality was rough. And in the mid 90s, the zebra mussel appeared for the first time, and that began the trend. And then about a decade later, the quagga mussel came in. It's cousin, and the quagga mussel is a unique little beast. It can live anywhere. It doesn't need zebra mussels like hard substrate, rocks, pipes, docks. Quagga mussels, they grow on anything. They'll grow on the plants. They'll grow on muck, rocks, so it doesn't matter. And they grow to all depths. We find zebra mussels in the deepest part of the lake, 40 meters plus. They are down at the bottom. They grow in the entire lake. They carpet the entire lake bottom. They are incredible filter feeders. I think our scientists estimate the population of quagga mussels in the lake is over 1 trillion. They're
what?
And yeah. And I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'll be in the ballpark. But the estimate is that population of quagga mussels can filter the entire volume of Lake Simcoe, which is it's big lake, in between 7 and 10 days.
Whoa!
So you think of being able to filter that level of water nonstop, and take all the excess phytoplankton and nutrients and sediments, and that's why you can see down 20, 30 feet in this spring before you get any algal production, any algae starts in the spring. we're getting like depth readings that are off the chart. Like that you can see the photosynthesis where light can penetrate is like closing in on, it's well past 20 meters. That, like,
Wow.
you know, like you think of you go back to the 90s and you go to today, the weed lines would peter out 15 feet, 16 feet, you know, in that range. Yeah. Now in Cook's Bay or others, you're fishing some deep coontail and other weeds, 35 feet. That's how deep some of that weed is now. And that has changed. So that changes the whole, a habitat. It changes the whole, where the fish can now have more habitats, where the minnows have more habitat. So it's changed the lake, and it made it looks, it's beautiful. The one concern we have is that all that filtering, though, you know, captures all that nutrient, right? It sucks it in, and then they excrete a lot of it out, and they have a layer at the bottom, and that's what we're studying to see. It's called shunting. They're shunting the nutrients from the water column to the sediment, and what we're concerned about is that creating a local problem right at that interface of the bottom? Is that an issue that's creating a challenge down the road? So that's the area our scientists here in our office are studying heavily right now. Is this change, this whole dynamic? Is the food web changing? Because we've seen aquatic plants take off, and what's driving that change? And then we have this new invasive species. Technically it's a macroalgae. It's called starry stonewort. It's like it sort of reminds you a little bit of chara, you know, like that crispy, crunchy weed, but it grows in like giant mats and balls, like giant tumbleweeds. So it doesn't lay on the bottom; it grows in the water column, and it displaces the natural plants, and the fish don't like it. Like it's not a suitable plant for fish habitat, and so that's one that concerns us, because if you remove the aquatic plants, this stuff loves to dominate. It comes in and it takes over, and it moves and it dies off, and then it comes back. So this is what this cycle on the lake is ever changing. It's constant, and that's one of the challenges of we're trying to keep up all the time on all these changes.
That's fascinating, because as I told you at lunch, one of the biggest problems I see with your community, the scientific community, is that you don't tell people what you're doing. I mean, this is all fascinating stuff. And all you hear about is, they stopped that development. It would have been great. We could have housed, 150 people and poo-poo on them, as opposed to listening to the stuff that you guys are doing. I mean, we need to tell the world about this, man. I told you that at lunch. I'm fascinated by this stuff. I could talk about this stuff all day long. We try all the time, but it's like everything. We compete for space, right? Just like any other topic out there, so to speak. But you mentioned the angling community loves this stuff. I mean, this is like I'm a hardcore angler, so I live for this stuff, just like you do too, right? So this stuff, like, that's my bonus of my job, is I get to learn a lot of and then apply it.
Yes, and I get to use it to my advantage.
You mentioned the quagga consuming the phytoplankton, all the microorganisms in the water.
Yep.
Did that turn into a problem initially when this started happening? Because obviously that's the bedrock of life in any waterway, is the zooplankton and phytoplankton.
Not yet, but that's when I talk about, like, let's look out 30 years, 40 years and see, does it then lead to a problem? And that's not where we're at yet. And so we're trying to sort of really nail it down. And the one thing with Lake Simcoe, it's big. Like it's dramatically smaller than the Great Lakes. So we're able to track the same issues that are experienced in like Lake Ontario or Lake Erie, but we see the responses much quicker because the lake's smaller, right? So we're able to really evaluate what happens when these species come in, or these nutrient dynamic changes, a little quicker than they can on the Great Lakes, because they're just so big. So it acts as a bit of a laboratory for the Great Lakes, because we literally act just like one. We have a big shallow bay, like a Cook's Bay, which is just like kind of like Lake Erie. We've got Kempenfelt Bay by Barrie, acts like Lake Huron, deep and cold, and then the rest of the lake's kind of like Lake Ontario, right? So we were able to really kind of gauge a lot of this in a fast way and watch. Like we we made some decisions years ago, which now look like we were like brilliant, but we did baseline aquatic habitat mapping and benthic mapping and zoo place. We have a historical record of where the mussel distribution has changed over time, how aquatic plants in the entire lake have changed, what's the bug community of the lake. We do this on a cycle. We're able to show those changes and have that amazing record, which is hard. You can't do on the Great Lakes, right?
No.
It's how you do that in Lake Ontario. And also you've got the whole binational issue with, where we're able to do it and use that as reference material to help inform the Great Lakes managers on both sides of the border.
Do you share this information with other groups? Yeah. Like, is this something that either other conservation authorities or maybe even private enterprise can tap into? Because it seems to me you guys are sitting on a wealth of data that can help not just your immediate areas, but hell, halfway across the world. Do you share this stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Different ways. So we work collaboratively, of course, with all the provincial ministries and the key federal ones that we're involved with. Our research staff are especially we have 2 PhD limnologists, 2 lake doctors, right? Like that's a rarity to have 2 detailed specialists of that level. And our senior one is he works with 2 universities. We work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Michigan DNR, New York DNR. You name it, we're involved with the Great Lakes. So on the science side, it's shared in that collective. On the public side, we have a lot of this resource on our website. Like there's fact sheets on aquatic plants and a bunch of other stuff. We also have an open data portal. So so much of our data is available on an open data portal, free access to anyone for specific data. So we try to share as much, and it's because we believe that the work and the data collected is on the public dime. Most of it comes from tax money and that. So we believe it should be open access. So we provide that on our website, through our website, to get to and mapping and data, all kinds of stuff. So our website is really has a lot of access to information.
Is it developed by a scientist or is it developed by somebody who speaks basic English?
No, we have both. We have both, and it's like the data itself is pretty typical data. It's data, but but the fact sheets and all the other stuff is written for anglers and users, and a lot less Latin, a lot more common language.
Perfect, because that's obviously, if it's not being used, it's because people have probably gone there and said, "Whoa, I've got to get." I'm out of here, right? But I'm curious now. We've been focusing our attention on smallmouth, but has this phenomenal transition affected the other game fish? Has anybody else benefited from it other than smallmouth?
Well, whitefish certainly have, because I think like we were talking earlier, the whitefish have completely changed onto the. I don't know the percentage, but a huge chunk of their diet now is on goby. And they will even incidentally take in mussels and be able to process them. But the goby has shifted it completely. I think perch are definitely predating on the smaller, younger gobies, like when they're young. So that has changed as well. I think it's not a lake. I mean, I'm sure lake trout will take one if he's down by the rocks and sees one, but they're still more of a pelagic, looking for herring or shiners out in the open water. But are shiners native? No, emerald shiners aren't.
No, I didn't think so. So they must have gotten in from fishermen.
They've been here forever. But man, you've seen some of the schools out there.
Oh,
they're just
massive.
like it's 200 yards in every direction, and it's just the wall of silver going through the water. And
it's funny because you don't think of them as even a forage base on that lake.
No,
but they are.
No, they're very, very, very big forage base. Like they used to be a huge forage base for like whitefish and that, but that has changed. And I think that also might be why some of the schools of shiners have increased over the while. And I think that's also why we've seen a response back from herring that there's less predation on the herring, the young herring, and the herring also have all these small emerald shiners to feed on. I think that has helped them respond. So I think this is the challenge with. I mean, it's managing. Like I don't envy the M&R on these. Managing the fishery is tough because when you have changes that like we talked about Lake Simcoe, it's probably changed more ecologically in the last 200 years than in the 2,000 years before that.
Why is that?
Because, well, for the millennia, it was just generally forested. You had, First Nation people, and then European settlement came, started clearing the land. We went to industrial. Then the Trent Severn Waterway came in and changed the lake. We have a completely, it's a manipulated system. It fluctuates half a meter annually. That's it. Like Lake Simcoe is a very stable lake. And then the invasive species and everything else. So like climate change, and you start throwing in all that. So you look at the last 200 years, what's gone on in this lake, it's significant. And yet this lake is still robust, great fishery with all that, that's a good news story. So that's why I get a little frustrated sometimes when people say you're not doing enough or the lake's not good enough. I'm like, let's take a look at this. I think this lake is doing great considering the challenges it's faced.
Oh my God! Anybody says that to you, they obviously just crawl out of a cave, because there is not a more robust and fertile and just a wonderful environment than that whole Lake Simcoe watershed. I mean, everywhere you go there, it just oozes with nature, and considering that it's sitting surrounded by, like I said, one of the largest populations, urban populations in North America. That's the thing that makes it really outstanding to me. And hey, is there any truth to the rumor? I keep hearing it, but I don't dig in far enough, that smelt are on their way back?
That was a tough one. Every year it's like this, right? You hear stories, you see them, you don't see them. I think they're the same thing. They're just responding. They're having good years, bad years. I don't think I would say from what I know, there's a full response. But they still, every once in a while, they show up in good numbers. But I don't think it's not like the herring. Like the herring came out, like they were around and they just disappeared.
Right.
And then when they came back with a vengeance. Like they were like everywhere, and they still are strong. So that why did that happen so just dramatically? That smelt has not had that same kind of response.
Okay, because that'd be a good one. I'd love to see that come back for sure.
Yeah, it'd be popular with a lot of people.
Oh boy, get the old net out. That used to be such a great time, and I know people my age keep saying, yeah, well, the old days, but that, there's an example there. That was a culture. That whole smelt fishery around the Great Lakes has developed a subculture that people waited annually for this big migration of fish, and there was entire communities embracing it, and it was great.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was definitely a big deal.
And as a little kid, you remember those images. It was fantastic. What's the hot button right now for you? What do you guys, either in terms of concerns or maybe in terms of successes, what is that one hot button that you're sitting on?
Right now, I think the one of the big ones is still trying to understand this nutrient change and the dynamic with quagga mussels and starry stonewort, and what's going on is really, what does that mean long term? And really understanding, are we heading to a challenge, or are we heading just down the same path? And I think that's trying to understand that, and that's where a lot of our focus is on right now. We have a couple big projects underway. We're really trying to reestablish the model. What does the ecological model of Lake Simcoe look like in this state? Because it's changed so much in the last 20 years. So I think one we're tracking. I think one that we're a little less involved in, but one that is concerning, which M&R is tracking and involved in heavily in the Invasive Species Centre, is water soldier. Water soldier is an aquatic plant from Florida, probably got in through aquariums, and it's now across the lower parts of Cook's Bay. And that one is if you know water soldier, it takes over. It can take over as a floating mat. It rises and falls from night to day. So it kind of falls in the water at night and then comes back up in the day, and it can create like a mat, and it's pretty impenetrable. So that is concerning for the shallower parts of the lake.
Wow. And it's in Cook's Bay now?
Yeah. It first, I think, got picked up about 2 years ago. And then last year they did a bigger assessment, and it was much more prevalent than I think anyone had hoped, unfortunately. And so that's one where I know the Invasive Species Centre is quite involved in trying to developed a bit of a plan on is there a way to address it? Can it be removed or not? I don't know where they're at fully with that yet. I'm going to have an update actually in a couple weeks on that.
It's a good time to ask you this question. Where does the angling community sit in this picture? Can they be of help to you?
Oh, absolutely. We've always had good relationships with all the different Bassmaster groups. Like I was one of the guys that brought the Bassmasters into Ontario back in the 90s. When I was in Kitchener, I was the president of the KW Bassmasters and brought that whole group in. And we've always had great relationships working with them on take a kid fishing days and cleanups and other things. And so they've been very good. OFH, we've always had a relationship with, of course, with OFH and more of the advocacy, the bigger picture role. But there isn't a specific like Lake Simcoe angling group, right? Like it's driven by. There was always a small muskies group trying to do muskie restoration up in the north end of the lake. We've always had there's a couple different. You've got Aurora Bassmasters and a Hogtown and Port Perry and a couple other groups that are on the bassing side. But so there isn't really a big angling group. I think the biggest one for the anglers is. Engage and learn, just like you were talking about, Ange, and also making sure to put your thoughts and your opinions and voice them out to the province and to the ministries to say, hey, we want to protect the lake. We want to, if you're interested in lake trout or whitefish, what's going on in stocking? Are you interested in bass? Like what's the status on the bass fishery, et cetera? So I think it's really getting just involved, engaged in making sure that you help protect the resource, but also protect, we continue to see the challenges around angling and hunting across North America. And I think want to ensure to protect that opportunity to have those rights not challenged. So you can get out and ice fish on Lake Simcoe or go bass fishing with your kids. So I think those are the areas where the angling community can definitely be a part of helping out.
Do you rely on them for information at all? Like, do you send, for example, you mentioned bass clubs. Do you say to bass clubs, hey guys, next weekend, if you're having that tournament, would you mind being on the lookout for the soldier?
Yeah, there's some of that goes on. We definitely chat to them about certain times that they're like some things are going on, or we use them really as eyes and ears. Like one of the things is they're out in the water, right? Right. That's one thing with anglers, they're out in the water the most, and they pick up on stuff, and we get phone calls regularly about, hey, I saw this or I found this, or what is this? Like I don't even know what this even is. We get our staff, myself or others, get invited out because. Like it's kind of my world. I'm an angler, so some of our science staff get invited out to the various clubs to talk about, hey, what's going on in Lake Simcoe. And you can imagine the bass clubs love that stuff. So they love getting all the nitty gritty on where the plants and what's going on with the gobies. So they live for that stuff. So so we do that as well. So we definitely are there to help educate the public on any front.
All right, educate me. What's the prime depth to find the biggest concentration of gobies?
Probably once they're past the 10 to 12 foot down to level that 20, 24 foot is that prime zone. Like they're in shallow, but they don't like when the current gets heavy on the wave action. So the bigger populations are pushed off. But and it's that mix of like good hard gravel cobble with some sand spots. Like that's the areas that they love they love the most. Like it's not just pure sand or just one sheet of gravel. It's that mixed habitat where they have little boulders where they can dart in and out of. That's the stuff they love the most.
Non-current.
Yeah, they don't like current. They're not a big they'll tuck in. Like when you watch like what's going on in the St. Lawrence when the big bass tournament, those guys are fishing all the current breaks, right? Because that's where the bass are hiding in there, but that's where the gobies are hiding because they don't want too much current. Like on the lake, there's not a lot of current, but they don't like big wave action.
Okay, you just helped me out for my next trip to Lake Simcoe. Listen. I could talk to you for days. You know that. We kind of locked ourselves in on that lunch afternoon, and we didn't speak to a whole lot of other people. But that's because we think the same and we have the same interests, and that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. I'd like to give you an open invitation to speak to the angling community on a more regular basis.
Sure.
Using this platform or any fishing platform. I just think you need to do it. I really think that it's good for not just anglers to find out, but I think it's good for you too to find. Inadvertently, you'll get rewards back for what.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think you need to do more of it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to help and do it. And glad to come on again and talk about any topic around the lake or the watershed. And also our one lake doctor, Dr. Brian Ginn, he's a fascinating speaker. And he will, I am not doing him justice today. I'll be quite honest, like try to talk about some of the stuff. Like I'm a biologist but I'm an administrator now. I don't get to play out in the field. I do the things I used to do. And Brian is so in depth and knowledgeable, and he can really have that great ability to convert science into language where everyone can really grasp a hold of it. And so he's a really great opportune guy to have on. But anytime we would gladly help out and be available to you.
Perfect. And we have another friend in common. I mentioned to you, Dr. Cook. Stephen Cook is a regular on this program, and you and him work together for a number of years. So that's
we go way back. I remember when he was a young undergrad back in the both of us were at Grand River Conservation Authority in Cambridge. So I've known Steve for a long time.
Good. All right, my friend, I will let you go. We will talk to you very, very soon. Hopefully, we'll have another afternoon at the Franklin Club. I wouldn't mind getting in on something like that for sure, because I found that fascinating. It totally goes against everything that I've grown up believing about nature, and wild, and fishing, and the purpose of getting out there. But I got to tell you, it was refreshing as hell. I really enjoyed it.
It's a nice experience. It's just something different. It's a little different, but it's a pleasure, right? And
I learned something there. I mean, aside from all the information from you, there was a couple of young guys at one point around the big pond, and they were clamoring over fish, and they were releasing it. And the one buddy was saying, "Yeah, that's a speckled trout," and I thought, "Nice kid, that's not a speckled trout," But I didn't want to say anything, right? So a little later on, one of those guys, the same guy who said it was a speckled trout, he was with another group of guys, and same thing was happening. He said, "Yeah, those are speckled trout." And so I leaned into him and I said, "Hey, listen, it's hard to really tell the difference, but especially in this, but that's not a speckled trout." Well, guess what? It was a speckled trout, because I got confirmation from it later on at lunch.
Yeah, there's some native brook trout specks, whatever.
Yeah, they're native fish
in there,
but they don't look like your normal average speck.
No, they're little. Their colors are a little like muted. Like there's a little paler. Because I think it's just because the water is a very kind of that green tinge. So I think they just blend in. They don't have to have that deep camouflage tigerback that they do in the creeks, right? So,
well, I'd have lost a ton of money that day if somebody was betting me on that one. I thought they looked like lake trout to me. They looked like a lake trout. That's exactly what I thought they were. But
yeah, if you ever want to come out and see what on the research boat and see what the gang does, we're glad to have you out and show you what we do on collecting some of the samples and that, and see some of that science live. It's some pretty cool stuff.
Love to, buddy. Absolutely love to. We will. I'm so glad that we met that day again, and hopefully it'll lead to all kinds of collaboration with anglers and scientists, which is, to me, the perfect combination for the outdoors. We will talk to you very soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Ange. Pleasure.
All the best. Rob Baldwin, Chief Administrative Officer for the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. And I got to tell you, I was so excited about getting him on the show here because, yes, he's a scientist, but much like Stephen Cook, Dr. Cook, he speaks our language. And that's when I mentioned about the language that's used on their site. When they're trying to communicate with anglers, is it in English? Is it something we can understand? And he knew right away what I meant. Fascinating gentleman, fascinating organization, flies way, way under the radar for my liking. I think that should change. I think we should be it doesn't sound like there's a lack of access to data and information, but I think we as anglers should inform ourselves a little bit more about what they do, because I think it can help us not just on maintaining this wonderful Lake Simcoe watershed, but in other areas as well. So anyways, fascinating guys. Look them up. I'm sure they've got a wonderful website that you can go to, etc. I want to remind everybody about the giveaways on fishingcanada.com that are ongoing every single day, from what I'm told. We're giving away stuff like sonar and outboard motors. I'm telling you. What's up right now, Dean? Do you know what's up for grabs right now?
We're recording a batch of podcasts here, so I don't want to give anything away, but we have some big stuff from Garmin coming up. I believe Mercury's getting involved again with some stuff, so keep an eye on the website for sure.
And Princecraft, aren't we supposed to have a boat?
We had a boat at one point. It needed a motor. Now we have a motor without a boat, so we need some coordination. Yeah.
Anyways, all kinds of stuff. It's always free and always available at fishingcanada.com. While you're there, go check out the store. Nice little items like I'm wearing today, a very simple little piece, but tells the whole story. All you need to see. That's it. I think we're done. I want to thank everybody. Hopefully next issue, Mr. Bowman will be with us. And no, not hoping. I know he will. But he will be back on the show. Keep an eye out for all good things happening with the Fishing Canada television show. For the entire crew, Volba, Nick, Dean, I'm Angelo. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week. This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio has been brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.